Now let's talk about how exactly to overcome FOMO, which is better known as fear of missing out. Now, there's two ways for the most part that people typically do get FOMO. Way number one that I'm going to talk about is they're just following what other people are basically doing, and because of those results, they feel not as amazing or successful as that other person. This is a big problem we have with social media, period, which is a related story, but I'll talk to. So if you go to facebook.com right now and you're following any kind of actual trading groups, you'll see. So if I scroll down for any amount of time, once we get to an actual Facebook uh, trading ad, so you'll see like options trading one-on-one. Someone right off the bat, Roku gains. It's a gainer. He says he got $11,000, $713, right? So when you go back to Think or Swim, you're gonna feel like shit, realistically, because that person got 11K, and you're like, I can't even make a dollar. So that comparison sake period would force you to say, okay, this thing's going down, but it's okay. It's been bouncing for this while. I'm gonna do a call. I bet it's gonna go up. Okay, maybe, but based off of what analysis, right? It doesn't make any sense. You just because someone else made money X way doesn't mean you have to make money X way as well. You can make money Y way, right? So if I zoom in, let's maximize the sale here. So as a perfect example, there's kind of two plays here. I guess right on this the screen that I'm looking at here. This zone is from a multi-day zone or from a day before. But let's just, as an example, say like, hey, there's a play here for a call to go to the upside. You can see it would have ended up pretty well. And there's technically a put still here on to the downside over here. So there's a play to enter on down here for a put. This one didn't necessarily go very far, but you still would have been in profit to a certain extent, maybe a 5% gain on the same day expiration. This one would have been way more than 5%, obviously, but still profitable. And like I said in the other video, money's money, green's greens, profit is profit, so it does not matter to a certain degree. You can get money. So like if you feel more comfortable scalping something, if you want to call that a scalp of a 5% gain, um, that's fine. Scalp it. Some people literally feel more comfortable doing this than they do with this, surprisingly. If you're familiar with my strategy is, hey, get in the cleanest plays possible. But for some people, mentality wise, this is clean. So just because someone makes 5% here and you don't see it or you don't feel comfortable, don't feel like, hey, I gotta do another put because they did it. Screw that. That means nothing. You get in the plays that you feel comfortable with. So as one little also tip, go to Facebook, go to these groups on the side if you're any of them, and if anything, maybe stay in one or two, but try to unfollow most of them. And if at all, don't even follow them, period, or even at least open the tab to look at them, because that's really messing you up, period. End of story, really, to be honest with you. That's part one. Part two, when it comes to how to overcome FOMO, if you're not all, well, let me stay on part one for example. So if you go back to even to the VIP trader chat room, you'll see quite often people are posting wins. Like Wendy Brown up here, she did a put from made a dollar from started bought it in at $1.04 and sold it at what is it, $1.16. 4 contracts. She said it kind of went a little south to her to a certain degree, but she stayed in it. You know. So, with that being said, maybe you like this trade, maybe not. Maybe you see that Wendy did this trade, but you think, hey, you know what? Maybe I should have did the same thing. I think Keith did the same thing, but his computer was a little slow. He said so he got it a little later. But hey, that's perfectly fine. But this doesn't mean you need to go in and feel like crap or hate yourself or feel like you're not a good trader because of it. Don't worry, you're a good trader. That's fine if you don't get this trade. Realistically, there's, let's just say, 30 trades every single day. All you need is one, and that's it. Maybe two if you really want to. But even with a trade like this, if that's 3 to 5%, that's perfectly. What if you got three? Let's worst case 3%. What if you got 3% of a gain every day for a week? 3 times 5 is 15% of a gain, right? That's amazing. Keep in mind, you got to keep things into perspective when it comes to this whole FOMO piece. The S&P 500 gives a gain of 7% on an annual basis. You're technically able to beat the S&P 500, or let's say over 80%, 90% of the market by you just being correct about a couple candles. That's it. You don't need a lot to be a successful trader. This is amazing, but this is also amazing. So FOMO or not, you need to recognize that any trade you do, as long as it's profitable, is phenomenally amazing. And that's that. Now and that's part one of how to help overcome FOMO. Just leaving some of those outlets alone. Like if you have my Slack chat room, it's amazing, but trust me, most people don't post there because they know the FOMO can get to them, so they don't even participate in it. And here's an extra funny story of that. Some of my best students, I know they become the best students because they stop posting in the chat room because they've grown beyond it essentially, and they don't want the FOMO. And they're following the strategy to a T, so they set an alarm, right, near wherever the heck they want the actual thing to be come back to. Then they walk away, so they don't need the chat room. Why do you need the chat room? Technically, when you think about it, you're just going to walk away and then come back and maybe make a trade. So keep that in mind. Definitely post in the chat room if you have questions, comments, concerns, but just throwing that out there. But that's part one. Part two, when it comes to this, of how to overcome FOMO, is the discussion of waiting for the candles to form, right? So let's take this trade here as that perfect example, kind of stretch it out a bit. So this thing came down, right? Basically started tapping the zone, came down, and we'll just ignore this for now, but we'll just take this as a perfect piece right here. Or you know what, we'll go to it directly. Um, let's see. So with this piece, let's say, so this is that zone candle, reversal, confirmation, followed by the entry. Now, depending on you, this is that entry where you're supposed to be entering it. It still had a good amount of meat on the bone, right? It went all the way to VWAP. But if you notice from, what is this, 467.24 all the way back down to the bottom part of 466.95, that's a pretty decent move that went up without you. So FOMO wise, it's very easy for you to you enter a trade and you feel like, okay, this one went down, it's going back up. Okay, this is turning out well. Okay, well this candle is kind of large. Okay, well, I hope I can enter the trade, and then like this one's running off. You're like, okay, well, I just wasted all of this. I should have gotten earlier. I knew I should have did that. Screw Maurice's strategy, etc., etc. The strategy is there to help you, not to hinder you. You need to wait for all the confirmation candles to happen. The reason why is because sometimes there's false bounces. So, as that kind of tip two, do not feel bad waiting for the candle confirmations, no matter the size of the candles. It's okay if you wait. But as vice versa, to reference this, I guess, if a candle is maybe too large to your taste, let's just say this is that zone candle, this is reversal, but the reversal's this tall, right? That's okay. Yeah, you're gonna feel FOMO, but this is a good thing. The fact of a candle being this large and right, and then let's say the confirmations like this, and then you're supposed to hypothetically enter on this candle here, right? But the target is VWAP. It's kind of senseless. It's this, but in my mind, this is a good news. I prefer when candles are this large and I don't enter a trade. That way, I don't have as much FOMO because I'm thinking I really want. So here's the secret sauce, I guess. I want the trade to. I want the chart to show me any and all reasons not to ever get in a trade because I don't want to trade. I want to only take a trade if it's a perfect setup in my mind that makes me feel comfortable. It doesn't give me FOMO and doesn't give me any fear, period. That's what I want. So, worst case scenario, if I don't take a single trade the entire day, I am 100% satisfied because I didn't enter on a trade that created FOMO or created any anxiety, as I discussed in a different video. I want to only enter on the trades that make me feel good. And if that one trade maybe gets me 7% of a gain, which again is only a few candles, and I only did, let's say worst case scenario, I did that one trade once in one single week, that's fine. I literally got a 7% gain in a week. So again, to rephrase it, you can potentially get around FOMO by trading much less. If you have a high amount of FOMO, being that you watch a lot of people do trading and they're not doing as good, or you think you're missing out on big plays just because you're not able to click that button, that's okay. Trade less. If you need to only take one trade a day, that's fine. Heck, if you need to take one trade every two days, that's fine. If you want to take one trade a week, that's fine. And I'll just do as a last piece. Again, let's just say you did one little quote unquote lousy trade that was a 7% gain in 1 week. You only trade it once a week, right? There's 5 weeks in a month. And let's just say one of them was a loss, actually. So we'll just say four. So you did four winning trades. So 7 times 4 is 28, and I have my calculator out. So 28, that's 28% gain on your entire account in 1 month. So let's do some more math. That's 1 month. Just do an entire year. An entire year, if you did one trade that was super tiny, that's a 333% gain on your entire account, including the losses of that one trade for that week. If you had one loss, so that's basically you get a 336% gain, along with the fact if you had one loss for 1 week to account for the entire year, you triple your entire account and then some. That's a really good deal that I think most people would take. But most people have FOMO so bad that they think they need every play that moves just because it moves. I'm telling you, you don't. Screw that. If you like this trade, trade it. You like this trade, trade it. You like this because it was a multi-day zone from the other day, take it. If you somehow like this one here, fine, take it. Screw it. It doesn't matter. But I'll leave it at that. That's the two ways of how to get through FOMO, which is known as fear of missing out.